Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. I am Tommy Scoble, and you are on the lifeboat. What's happening? Hope you're all having a good morning. Um, this one, unlike everything else that we do on the boat, literally affects every single person that has ever watched this channel. Whether you're a drug addict or whether you're a person that has never struggled with anything, right? They don't exist. But if you're the person that lies and says they've never struggled with anything, this is going to affect you just as much as it affects somebody that has been doing blow their entire life. Science has really made some strides in when it comes to what they know about the dome, right? The brain. And throughout the course of a day, depending on which study you believe, we got somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 unique thoughts. Doesn't necessarily mean that each one is different than the last. What it means is that it stopped, moved to another one, right? So it's going to hop from thought to thought about 80,000 times a day. 80% of those thoughts are just ants, right? These are recurring thoughts that are not positive. They're ants, right? If they're recurring and they're automatic and they're negative, right? They're automatic negative thoughts, and these destroy human beings. And sadly, very few people ever even get familiar with the concept or address it. We believe, erroneously, we believe that those voices that tell us really jacked up stuff in our head is us, right? And our brain wouldn't lie to us. So if our brain's telling us that we're really struggling or we're having a bad time or we're, when our brain begins, I'm sorry, I had a rough morning. Got up at about 3:30 this morning, which is pretty close to par for the course. We're going to get back to ants, but I wanted to bring you up to speed on where I'm at. So we got about there's two projects I'm working on with other people that require some research concerning the Bureau of Prisons. So I was doing this at about 3:30, and fortunately, I don't have a headache, which is really great because that's usually, oh, Scoob's got a kitty on her chest. I'm jealous. Normally, when I start getting under the weather, it's my head, right? Because this is something that is caused by injury to my head, right? I've got some issues there. My head feels fantastic, but I don't know what I got because I feel like I have kind of feel like I have the flu. And right in the middle of that last sentence, I thought I was going to hurl. So I thought I would tell you that in case I have to hit stop because I'm not going to vomit on the air. If you do want to see that, I think there's plenty of it on one of the challenge videos of me and my brother. So automatic negative thoughts. There are people who have written books about these. There are people that have spent a lot of time trying to dissect why it is that we do this to ourselves. Why is it that our brain seems to want to short circuit us, derail us, and make us unsuccessful? The question then also becomes, when we look at people like Elon Musk, right, who is a guy that said, I don't understand why an electric car can only go 40 miles on a charge. That doesn't make sense to me, right? So he just built one that can do 280. Now, of course, they're getting a lot farther and a lot farther distances, but this was a cat that was pretty sharp, and then said, wait, why we're shutting down NASA? Maybe I should start a company to take stuff to space, right? On top of the other things. Started with PayPal, but this is a pretty sharp cat. Do you ever wonder if he spends 80% of his day having his automatic negative thoughts tell him that he's a failure or that he's worthless or that he's not as good as the second richest man on the planet? What do you think goes on, right? Do really successful people just learn how to not listen to that voice? Do they learn how to quiet that voice? I'm here to tell you something. In my experience, automatic negative thoughts disassembled me for 46 years. I struggle with them today. Everybody does, but I do not feel threatened by them. And it is not the overwhelming thing that I worry about concerning sobriety or concerning in my life. And I think I have not had, there has not been some guru epiphany that makes it so that ants don't work. I got busy. Honest to God, I got busy. What I found is if I'm sitting around and doing nothing, there's a light switch in my head that gets thrown. If I'm doing nothing, and I don't mean I can sit around with friends and put my feet up. and have a conversation. That's doing something. But if I'm sitting on the couch doing nothing, throwing on South Park, I got a decent chance that my brain is going to throw a switch. Right? That's when the brain throws the switch. And when the switch gets thrown, it seems as if my subconscious wants to derail my success. My subconscious wants to do everything within its power to make sure that I don't get to the finish line. Martha, I just picked Elon off the top of my head, hon. It could be anybody. My point was, pick a successful human being. Maybe pick one that's not on the spectrum. And do you wonder if these people are plagued by the same things? And I don't believe that they are. Or if they are to a far less degree and a far less extent. And the reason that I believe that is because in my experience and working with a ton of addicts in particular, when they get busy, automatic negative thoughts don't have a lot to talk about. If you're moving forward and really focus driven, then more often than not, you're not having these things light up your head. Now, there is also, there is a threat that, in every single person's life, when success starts really flowing, you get a completely different kind of automatic negative thought, right? When things are really going well, you get you're a phony kind of, right? You get whatever happens to be your weak spot. Then your automatic negative thoughts are going to go after them. And I have been screaming since I started talking on the lifeboat that as an addict and as in someone in recovery, you've got to realize that your brain wants you to get high. Plain and simple. If this is a concept that you can't wrap your brain around, you're probably not a drug addict. Because drug addicts understand that there's a voice inside them that maybe not even audible, right? I'm not talking about anything like this, but I'm talking about that desire that against all common sense tells you to go back to something that sent you to prison 3 times, that destroyed 2 families, right? It doesn't make any sense. But if you come to the realization that as an addict, your brain would like the easiest path, and the easiest path is the one that you've already done. The easiest path is the one that is not going to have any change, any adventure, anything. Right? The brain would like you just static. It would like you where you have been. It's not going to have any adventure. It's not going to have to be creating anything. It's not going to be dumping chemicals. You know that in theory, right? According to science, dopamine is the new experience chemical. If we're experiencing new things, our brain releases dopamines, right? Dopamine hits come out fast if you're doing something you've never done before. Jana, thank you. I'm glad that you're here. I appreciate you. Hi, guys. Question, Tommy, have you seen the Annenberg Public Policy Center study on Christmas taking your own life? And if so, do you think media coverage increases the possibility or lowers it? I think that media coverage very often, this is just my opinion, but I think stories like this, if you happen to be a person who is already thinking in that direction, sometimes it can be detrimental. I think that there are people that go the other way. I think that there are people that see stories like this and think, maybe I'm not, the one in a million. Maybe this is something that really does affect everybody and I need to ask for help. But either way, I think that the reason that these stories are important is not for the person that's suffering. It's for the person living with the person that's suffering, or it's the person that works every day with the person that's suffering. I think that stories like this are really important because it elevates the discussion, and it has, when I come on here and I say in the month of December, I'm going to do as many shows as I can. It's not just to support the people that are going to come here in December. It's to say things like, please check on everybody you care about, right? Please reach out to the people in your life. If you haven't heard from them, that's bad, right? That's not normal in this time of year. So reach out and start talking to people. And that's one of the things that I really hope that does. And I really hope that when we talk about things like this, that the discussion gets, that it just gets people talking about it. Sadly, that's a very, very taboo subject, right? I can't even say it on this video, right? Or they're going to bury the video. Do you know why they're going to bury the video? Because people used to make unalive videos to talk to people through the process and tell them how to do it. And, what is the least painful and all of these things that used to be a genre, right? On the big red button. And the big red button said, we're not going to have a hand in trying to allow that to happen. And they, as very often happens, they're going to, it's going to be a knee-jerk reaction, right? It's sad that we can't discuss this without it burying the video, because this is a discussion that, it's very odd trying to create content that everything I talk about bums out the big red button. When I say cocaine, they think I'm telling you to snort it, right? If I say heroin, they think I'm telling you to shoot it. And if, God forbid, I use the S word, they're going to suggest that I'm trying to tell people how to do it, and probably tell you to do it with dope, because the algorithm isn't doing a lot of thinking. It's just looking for particular words. So when I sound like an idiot and I'm talking and saying things like unalive and all that, it's because we really are trying to push the message. But I think the message is important. And I think that the message is so important this time of year. And make no mistake, when people go over to the other side, when people take a problem and they choose a permanent solution to a problem that I guarantee you was part-time, right? This was not a permanent problem, but they certainly sought a permanent solution. And it is not one, for anybody considering it, that ends every problem. It is a transfer of every problem, right? You don't end your problems, you hand them to your children. You hand them to your parents, you hand them to your siblings, and you hand them to your friends. I am terribly sorry, but I've thought it a coward's way out. I always have. And people get really angry when I say that. But I spent a lot of time sitting in a box with that always in the back of your head. I don't need to do this anymore. But I watched what happened when people did that in there, right? Just to the convicts, to guys that shouldn't be breaking down, right, in a day room. I watched what happens when someone unalives themselves. And it's almost always this time of year. They don't end their problems, they pass them off. Right. And I really want to make sure that that in this month we're reaching out to everybody, right? Age restricted. Well, everything I do is age restricted. And I've done that since the very first day that we did a video, right? I have always said that this is adult content, that we never wanted kids anywhere near this channel. And I've done some videos that specifically I have said, you want to show this one to a kid, go ahead and show this one to a kid. But the vast majority of stuff we talk about here, is designed for adults. So we've always, we started getting monetized about 6 or 7 months ago. We changed to nothing. But I think what happens is you get to a size where all of a sudden they actually have to have a human being look at you. And when a human being looked at the channel, all of a sudden everything started turning green. Martha, sorry for your loss. Do you know what? Jennifer, this is so sad. My husband's mom unalived herself, and he thinks in her own hell now. I don't necessarily want to do a show on this, but there's a direction that I would really like to take this. But I had a very, very long conversation with so many people about this. There is a school of thought among religious people that sends you to the other side. I struggle to believe that a person, no matter what higher power they believe in, if they prayed, I can't take this anymore, I believe in you wholeheartedly, I just can't handle the pain anymore, and went to the other side, that they would end up in hell. I'd not like to believe in that God. That's me personally. But you can do anything you want or believe anything you want. But Jennifer, I don't believe that would do that to a human being or their soul. But that's just my humble opinion. This is actually not such a bad idea. If you ever do a Caddyshack 2 watch along, I really hope it's age restricted. No child should ever be forced to see such atrocities. A truer thing has never been said on the lifeboat. That was absolutely an abomination. It's truthy. It is so true that nothing, even facts, could make it less true. Kelly, there's really something to that, right? And Kelly makes a point that I don't know that I don't know that everybody goes there with their head, but it probably is a really good place to go. It's hard enough to lose someone you love, much less having to contemplate the level of pain they must have been in to unalive themselves. It's so hard to deal with. I can't imagine. I can't. I've never lost a loved one that way. I've lost friends or acquaintances. I don't know what they were. I've lost a lot of people that I knew who have taken that route. It is very popular among heroin addicts in particular. They come to believe somewhere along the line that that feeling of the initial shot where you do too much and you think you might go out is what eternity is going to feel like. And it is very often a route that is taken by addicts. And the sad thing is that research will also tell you that heroin addicts who take their own lives do not often leave behind a letter, which leaves their family wondering forever if this was an accident or if it was something done intentionally. It's just this is not something we want anyone to endure, be it the person who's leaving or the people that they leave behind. And the more that the concept of an automatic negative thought, automatic is the word here, right? Automatic. There's no control over the fact that this happens into the person's head until we can make the person understand that there's a way to control that. And if you believe that these thoughts are not controlled, do you know how many people believe that it's literally a possession, or people who believe that, you know, they have a split personality, or we try to reason with this in our heads, and without the proper info, right? Without the proper contextualization for all of it, then you end up thinking that you're broken. Oh, Martha, I can't imagine. Good Lord. This is something that how many people have PTSD from 9/11 in Manhattan? I've told the story on here before. I had a business partner at the time, and I found out about 9/11 because Johnny, my brother, called me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working." He said, "Turn on your television." And I watched, just as I turned on the TV, the second plane was hitting the tower, the second tower. But the last time I spoke to my business partner, he said, "I'm on my way to Manhattan." And for those that remember that day, if you had cell service on the island of Manhattan, it was over, right? You could not get a call in or out of the island. It was just overwhelmed, right? Everybody on the planet was trying to call one city. And so it took almost an entire day before anybody could verify that he was okay. And his wife called me every 30 minutes. I remember that day. It was just absolutely horrific. And I wasn't tied to it. I wasn't in the city. I cannot imagine what that had to do to the people of Manhattan. And it's one of those things that every time it gets brought up, somebody says, "Well, they're the toughest people on planet Earth," right? You know, New Yorkers, they rode the subway the next day. And there's a lot of truth to that. The New Yorkers went and got on the subway the next day. I would imagine a lot of them were not really comfortable getting on that subway. I think we give people a lot of credit for things that they're just so tough, or maybe you just have to do it. And that's a place where people get on subways, right? How many people in Manhattan own a car? It's just a very different lifestyle. If you've never been to the city so nice they named it twice, you should check it out, because it is not like living in any other place. Those people. And I think it's heroic. I really do, how that city bounced back, but I can't imagine the number of people who are struggling with PTSD or complex PTSD from what happened that day. I mean, we see the videos and it's horrific. And you know what? They've sponged the planet of the videos that were too hard to watch. They've done an excellent job of eliminating almost all of those videos. But when it happened, those videos were ubiquitous. If you went to any single, you went anywhere, there was somebody showing one of those pictures. And if it had been, you know, a family member that were in those photos, you know, yeah, that was a day that changed the planet. And Martha, you know what? This is for your nephew and for everybody else in Manhattan, and to all the first responders who got completely screwed in this entire process, right? John Stewart. And I'll tell you something, people. I think I've gone through 4 phases with John Stewart in my lifetime. Like, I was the biggest John Stewart fan in the world, and then I was not. And then I sort of became one again. But what he is doing for the first responders, he goes to the floor of Congress and screams like I do on rant videos, right? This dude's a beast. And he gives a voice to a group of people who don't have a voice, and they don't have a voice because they were heroes, right? They went in there when, yeah, that I could literally spend the next 40 minutes screaming about that, and that's probably not why you guys showed up here this morning. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jon Stewart and what he has done for the people, and the first responders, and the sort of the forgotten people that went and, you know, breathed that stuff in. Bruce Cook says, I went through New York City on a bus in October, 1 month after the attack happened. It was weird not seeing the towers there anymore. I was living in Jamestown, New York at the time. I was there. I can't remember exactly how many weeks afterwards, but we were still counting it in weeks. And I was there with my partner, the guy that we couldn't find that day. And there was still a molten pond, is what they were calling it, of liquid metal that had melted from the fire at Ground Zero, and it was still liquid. That was such a all of that was surreal. And yeah, big prayers to everybody. And Martha, I'm so sorry for your nephew. I mean, no one should have ever had to live with that. Fancy Nancy, the ones is us saying, you know what, we're pulling for you, and you do that any way you want. Some people pray, some people whatever. What's that?
Virtual love.
Virtual love, says Joni Scoville, who is a little bit quicker on the uptake. I don't mean than me. I just meant this morning. Normally he's really slow. I'm kidding. Yeah, good vibes, thoughts, prayers, all of that stuff. So back to why we're here. Ben Turner, this is why we're here. I found I tend to think that I am the only one with ants. Right? I know better. No, everybody has ants. And it's funny because as I was putting the thumbnail together for this, and usually I'm done with all of the prep and stuff that I'm going to do for today by the time I'm putting together the thumbnails, right? So I'm putting the thumbnail together for this thing, and it was like, oh, I pulled it off, and I got about 20 minutes to spare. So I set the thing down and I put my feet up, and it took about a minute before they just started setting in. And ants are horrendous if you're a YouTube creator, right? I mean, you can't sit in front of a camera all day long and not have a whole host of things you think you're awful at, right? Or you don't look good doing, or whatever. It's an ant factory, right? Being a content creator absolutely creates this kind of stuff. And when I say, everybody needs to go into therapy, everybody needs to have a counselor, right? I scream this all the time. I think you should have a team of 3. I think you should have a psychiatrist. I think you should have a counselor, and I think you should have a therapist. And if you are in recovery, really, that would be great. And then a peer support group or 2, because it's really kind of that big, especially in the beginning, right? It's that big of a deal when you first get rolling. But if you happen to be creating content where people send you emails and talk about the fact that they're bummed out about something and you're not seeing a counselor, bad things are going to happen to you. For real, they are. Because if you don't work through the other people's problems that you had to deal with, then you're really, really in trouble. I love it. We made it through that horror and are here to live our lives, to be happier and more loving. Well, I love that. And I've always believed that like that's the city that it's the center of the universe, I think. Certainly here. It's really something else. And it's probably my second favorite city on earth. I really, really love New York. No offense to New York for being second, but it's in the top 3. I really love that city. And my whole family's, we're from that part of the world. So it's the holiday season, right? The other thing that I have found, and this is just, again, this is my experience. Ants, for me, started the reproductive process when I was quite young, right? The automatic negative thoughts that I deal with are not in any way, shape, or form different than the ones that I was dealing with when I was 15. They have not changed in any way, shape, or form. They're the exact same thoughts. They may wrap themselves differently. They may package themselves differently, whatever, but it's the same thoughts. It's fear that I'm not good enough, right? It's fear that I've blown every opportunity that I ever had. And it's fear that I've burned bridges, the knowledge that I burned bridges. These are the automatic negative thoughts that go through my head. They're probably always going to. The difference is that I know that they're automatic negative thoughts. I realize that this is my brain trying to get me to put dope in my vein because I did it for 30 years, right? I've only been alive for 53 of them. So this was my life. If I was stressed out, I did drugs. If I was too happy, I did drugs. If my girl broke up with me, I did drugs. If I got a new girl, I did drugs, right? There was nothing to not justify me doing more dope. And if you've been addicted to a substance that is physically addicting, when you get sick, ants are at their best. When your family is visiting, ants are at their best. Why? Because we're flashing back, in my humble opinion, to when we were younger. And they're the same automatic negative thoughts. So if I get around family, all of a sudden I've got the same dynamic. I got my older sister here. I got my brother there. The only difference is now she's got her kids. I got my kids. He's got his kids. And when they all get together, the dynamic, as kids, there was probably a period of time where you thought that mom loved your sister more or mom loved your brother more. You may not have ever articulated it, but I promise as a sibling, you thought it at some point. And I'll be damned if it doesn't happen again in Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? Holiday memories got imprinted on you as a kid, different than other memories. You get this, right? This should make a lot of sense. As human beings, the things that we remember are tied to emotion. The idea being they don't want us to repeat things that are going to kill us. So you go to step off a curb texting and a bus comes so close to you that it spins you around but doesn't kill you. That memory, the smells, everything you heard, that is going to be imprinted on your brain differently than other memories. I promise. Right? Fist fights are going to be imprinted. You're going to remember them differently than you remember other things. Why? Well, because the adrenaline was kicking. Like all of these things that were happening were unique. The chemicals that your brain released were not just released to help protect you and everything else. It was intended to imprint that memory on you so strongly that you go, you know what? When I call a guy in prison a punk, he hits me instantly. So that the next time you feel like doing that, you might go, maybe I won't use that P word. The idea is that memories are supposed to, especially traumatic ones, are supposed to protect us. Our brain is going, don't let Tommy forget that, or his dumb, what will do it again. So when you think that something we do for the first time or something that is super exciting, well, do you remember Christmas up until about the age of 11? Like how exciting was Christmas? I started getting ramped up for Christmas in October. So my memories of Christmas time, here's the thing. I've talked about this on the lifeboat. My dad was not a drinker, right? He just wasn't. That doesn't mean my dad didn't drink. He just wasn't a drinker. In the 53 years I knew my dad, I probably saw him with a good buzz on, maybe 7 or 8 times. He just wasn't a drinker. There were times he drank. But at Christmas time, there was at least 1 to 2 drinks he drank every single Christmas. And that was about it. And he said he did it because it used to remind him of his dad, the smell of it. Now, if you open a bottle of bourbon in a room, I am in Christmas. Like my head goes back to where I was the first time I remember that smell. Why? Well, because the olfactory senses, this puppy, is closer tied to memory than anything else. And it's because of the positioning inside the brain. It literally sits almost on top of the memory center. Ever walk into this is for my male friends, ever walk into an elevator and somebody in that elevator is wearing perfume that your high school girlfriend wore or perfume that your ex wore, whatever. But you walk in and go, and I mean, you got 6 weeks of memories in 40 seconds, right? Everything, you just go, oh my God. Inside prison, no one is allowed to wear anything that smells. The people that visit you are not wearing cologne. The people that you do case working with are not wearing perfume. That's not allowed inside. And I went to a meeting with an FBI agent who came in wearing perfume. Like she didn't get the memo. And the perfume she was wearing was perfume that an ex wore. And I was worthless for the entire time this person wanted to talk to me because they walked in and I was like, my brain took over. I'm showing films, right, on a widescreen in my dome while this person's trying to ask me questions. I assure you I wasn't engaging. The brain is an incredibly powerful thing. You ever have a memory that is so real that you can't tell the difference almost? Well, let me tell you something. You have that, and you have it every day. This has been verified by science, right? Your brain can't tell the difference between a memory and the real thing. It also can't tell the difference between a memory and a projection, right? So the ultra successful and the ultra rich and the ultra whatever will all sit around and tell you that they literally, some of them will journal about things that haven't happened, right? They will journal about things that haven't happened. Now, if that sounds stupid to you, what they're literally doing is getting the brain programmed, right, for success. Because we don't want to be successful. I promise you we don't. That may sound so dumb, but we do not want to be successful. As much as we talk ourselves into it and everything else, our body can't handle it. It's brand new. It's so damn new, especially if you're an addict. Our default setting is failure. We're completely cool with failure, right? We understand failure. We know failure. We've perfected failure. I was the best failure you ever met. Because not only could I fail, but I just had this whoop-ass excuse. Every single person that ever met me said, this dude, it's the drugs, man. This guy's sharp. If this guy got sober, he would do amazing things. But it's the dope. The first time I heard that, you don't think I wrapped my legs around that? I was like, holy hell, this is an excuse. They'll tell me I am smart. I get to do all the dope I want. Keep in mind, I don't think I'm smart. I think the whole world, I got snowed. My ability to memorize things, my ability to be a parrot, had me convinced at a very young age that I could make people think I was smart. That's what I thought. I thought I was really good at making people think I was smart. But in my head, I knew I was really, really not very bright. And I had some dyslexic issues, and I had some other issues that just, and the dyslexic thing is really hard to explain because I get emails from people that say, oh, I'm dyslexic. I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't know that my dyslexia is like other people's. I don't transpose numbers. I never see or letters. I never see anything necessarily backwards. But if you ask me to write down 6 numbers in a sequence, the odds that I get that sequence right are 1 in 1,000. I promise you. I'm so bad at that there was no hope for math. Now, I can walk into a grocery store and I can throw things into the cart the entire time I'm going, and I'm going to be within a couple of bucks when I get to the cash register, right? Of what the running total is. I can do that in my dome. But if I sit down and I try to put it on paper, I'm done. None of this, I didn't realize any of that, by the way, until I was considerably older. And I met some people that said, why don't we try a couple of experiments, right? And I started to realize that not only wasn't I dumb, but I did have my snap. Right? That is so funny. I failed algebra in high school 3 times. And then I got a teacher named Frank Capusta. He's no longer with us. I'm pretty sure I can say that name. He won the lottery twice. I'm not kidding, people. I had a high school teacher that won the lottery and then continued to play it and hit it a second time. And he was large and obnoxious. And on the first day of class, he said, I want all the soccer players on the left side of the room and all the football players on the right. Now, everybody got up and started moving. And a lady in the front row raised her hand and said, why are we doing this? And he said, it makes grading a lot easier. Like he wasn't playing, like he didn't care. And he would say, how's the team looking? I'm putting money on it for this weekend. I'm not kidding. This was a gambling degenerate that got me and my brother through high school math so that we could continue to play football. That's how it went down, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I couldn't do math, but I got through school. Right. And then you get to college and it's the same crap, but it's skiing or whatever. Right. Anyway, I have algebra trauma. And algebra, I can't do in my head. Algebra is a concept that Tommy will never get. And I've tried. I've sat down with people who teach things in different ways. This is not something I'm capable of. It just doesn't.
Solve for A just makes me angry.
Well, they shouldn't mix letters and numbers. That's a bad idea, just period. And once again, let it be known, I was told there would be no math. And my teachers who told me you weren't going to get through life, talking to the person next to you and not doing math. Well, here I am talking to the person next to me and not doing math. This is also absolutely huge. for two reasons. Number one, you're right. Every single major holiday, we take inventory of the people that were there the previous year, but not there this year. We don't do it when we're 6, right? That's not something that happens until we get older. But now we are at the age where it seems like every holiday there's one less person. Do you know what else that does? I promise you, it kicks ants into high gear. You say, why? Well, that doesn't even make sense. Oh, it does. Anything that gets you off of that equilibrium, that happy medium that we all try to stay in, right? Anything that gets you out of that happy medium. I want to tell you that when my dad passed, automatic negative thoughts worked me so badly that I went into panic mode, right? Like I was in a halfway house when my dad died. And I made it about 19 hours. And then I walked into a caseworker's office and said, I'm going to go out the door and go get dope. Like, you need to do something other than just keep me upstairs, because I'm going to escape out of here today and I'm going to go do it. I don't know how to make this stop. And to their credit, like they bent over backwards to make sure that didn't happen, right? And they didn't do it by locking me up or doing anything like that. They brought in a person in person to sit down and work with me. And this was the time of the plague, right? So they really did bend over backwards. They had me in a room. It looked like something from Saturday Night Live. They locked down the entire halfway house because they needed the entire downstairs room. I sat across from a therapist that was 30 feet away from me if she was 2. I'm not kidding, right? 30 feet away at the end of a table that had about 11 chairs on each side, right? This is for a halfway house of 106 people. But even after speaking with multiple professionals, the ants went on for months. And it would get to a point where every time an ant would come on, I would literally stop. Like if I were walking, I would jam on the brakes. And I say this because at a halfway house, you're always walking, right? We didn't have a vehicle at this point, and a lot of buses and a lot of walking from place to place. And when you do it every single day, your brain starts to go on autopilot. I learned if I took different routes, ants didn't happen. I started taking a different route every single day. And you know what? About 6 days into that, I get called into the office at the halfway house. We followed you yesterday. Is there a reason you didn't go? I said, I went exactly where I was supposed to go. And here's the reason that I didn't go the way I always go. And I'm not going to go the same way tomorrow. And they were pretty cool about it. I mean, as long as I got to work on time. But you understand? Our sense is everything. If it is normal, if we see it every day or whatever, and it's not new or creative or exciting, we really give ants a playground. I stay very, very busy. And it was not to kill ants. It was because I had a mission and I didn't know how long I got to get it done. I want this. People, I have a vision for the boat. I have journaled about where this thing is going to be in 5 years, right? I feel like I'm looking back at it from the future. I'm not going to lie to you. I was up real late last night working with people, and the things that we're putting in place, 2024, this is going to be a very different support network. And I don't care if you're on drugs or not on drugs, or you're suffering from anything else on planet Earth. In a 24-hour period, I'm working way more hours than I should, right? And all of the letters, I appreciate all of you. I know what I'm doing. I do. And on January 1, people, ant is an automatic negative thought. It is a thought generated by the brain that more often than not wants you to just do something stupid. And whether that stupid is I'm going to go get a drink, or I'm going to go do drugs, or I'm just going to beat myself down until I am so upset I can't get out of bed. I can't function. I can't go to work. I can't do. And I've been there. I promise you, if you're suffering from clinical depression, ants are having their way with you, right? Depression is another way to think of depression. You don't sit in depression thinking nothing. You sit in depression and the ants take over. Instead of being able to plan what you're going to do for the day, all day long, you get that I'm not good enough. Mom didn't love me. My brother's more popular. Whatever the hell you're struggling through in your dome, right? My wife's cheating on me. My secretary, is plotting to have me eliminated at work. Whatever's going through your dome, automatic negative thoughts will disassemble you, right? It will take your life apart if you let it. Hit that thumbs up button. So you're saying, how do we stop this from happening? I'm not kidding. So I'm on my way to work, and that automatic negative thought would come up, and I had to look like a raving lunatic to people watching me. I would jam on the brakes and go, no, I'm not kidding. I'd be in the street. No, I'm not having it. I am a good person. I'm a good person. I got way off the rails, but I'm a good person. Like deep down, the person that I am cares about other people, sometimes more than he should. But I'm not a bad person. And I spent 46 years where 80% of my thoughts were telling me I was a bad person. How the hell can you get through life if 10% of your thoughts are telling you you're a bad person? So if you feel stupid in the morning, staring at the mirror in the bathroom and saying, you know what? You're going to be successful. You're never going to do dope again. You're a good person. And the things that you did in your past, no one in their right mind would do. So what does that mean? It means I wasn't in my right mind. Right? I wasn't in my right mind. I'm going to beat the piss out of myself for things that I did not in my right mind. No, I'm going to reprogram the new me. I'm going to reprogram the new me. And you may not believe this, people, but there are times where I'll be sitting and working and I get an email from someone and I respond back and I hit the send and I get this voice in my head that goes, damn, you're a different person than you used to be. Holy hell, you're a different person than you used to be. You know what that is? That's an automatic positive thought. I kid you not. That is an automatic positive thought. Do I have, 80% automatic positive thoughts? I do not. But I'll bet you I got 10%. Right? And I got a lot of time to work on it. I would like to believe that before I leave this planet, when I get bored, my brain is going to tell me what a great guy I am. Right? My brain is going to tell me all of the people I've helped. My brain is going to tell me every time I got up and did one of these when I felt like, yeah, because today was one of those days, if you really want to know the truth. I said to Johnny before I hit record on this, there's no chance I get through this whole video. I feel like crap. But when this one's over, it's going to be a couple more automatic positive thoughts tucked away. Remember that day you just didn't want to do it? Right? It is absolutely possible to have automatic positive thoughts. But in order to have them, you must manually put them in your dome. You understand? You have to input anything positive. The negative will come in on its own without any help, right? The positive, you literally have to work on. So if you're not journaling, we're wasting our time talking right now. We are, because one of the absolute greatest inputs for your computer system is writing. And the reason it is because now we have to engage this, right? Our eye. Do you realize that you can go off in your head seeing things that you're not looking at? It happens all the time. It really does. Even with eyes open, your brain is re-putting back together memories and assembling things. Start using all of the senses required to write. Now you're thinking, right? If not, you sit on the couch and you live in emotion. Now you got to turn on the part of your brain that's going to take that emotion and write it. You know what that's called? Logic. You're going to turn on a higher functioning part of your brain. If you haven't written anything down in the last 5 years, you're failing at being a human being. Sorry.
Ouch.
It's the truth. You want to be successful, you're going to engage the brain with the use of one of these, or you're not a writer, don't be a writer. Go and do it in an audio message to yourself. But you better start getting the thoughts that are in your head into some form of organization, because as somebody on the boat said yesterday, it's like a spider web, right? You got to clean that crap out. And that really is the case. This stuff will crisscross your dome and destroy you. Automatic negative thoughts are why there's 168 people listening to me right now. It's why 17,000 people hit subscribe. Because these are real and they affect every single person on earth. I would like to believe it's possible to be one of those people that could just get to a point where you have inputted so much positive stuff about who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, how much you've changed, that when you're sitting there putting your feet up, you're going to hear that little voice in the back of your head that's going to say, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you.
Hey, Shelton asked, what if you consider a life chat a type of journal?
It is a type of journaling. This is a type of journaling. Make no mistake. It is a type of journaling. It is. And it's connection, right? It is. But when you journal alone, the thoughts that you put down are different than when people are reading them. They're so different. You know how I know this? because I work with a therapist who says, bring your journal, right? Well, I no longer live in the same state, but she used to say, bring your journal with you when you come. And I want to tell you something. My journaling changed. I started writing differently because I knew someone else was going to look at it. And I'm not very good at this, right? I'm not a good writer. My penmanship looks ridiculous. I capitalize letters for no apparent reason. And I have this sort of bastardized half cursive, half. My penmanship is really something to see, people. It looks almost hieroglyphic, but I can read it. But I changed. And when I changed, I wasn't getting anything out of it because I wasn't writing to be me. I wasn't writing to be genuine. I was writing it to try to impress the person that was going to be reading it. Right. So yes, it's a type of journaling, to be sure, but there needs to be a type of journaling where it's you and you. And the honesty that will come out in a journal is different than the honesty that will come out if it were you and me in a room and I was working. You know, the two of us were just talking and I was asking you questions and pulling it out. You're going to be more honest to your journal than you're going to be to me. That's who we are. Makes a lot of sense if you think about it, right? I've come on here and told you all the dirt I've done in my past, and I'm still going to be 500 times more honest to my journal. And I don't mean honest in terms of things I've done. I mean emotions, right? It's really hard for a guy to say, I'm scared, right? Those are words that guys don't like saying, right? I'm terrified, right? These are words that guys don't say out loud because you're considered weak, right? Well, you could say it to a journal. You can say it to a journal. I have found my peeps. Thank you. This chat at this time in my life is needed. Laura, I love that. I really do. I love that. Did she pick up on it? Debbie, she did it to illustrate. I said to her about 2 weeks in, I said, I don't think this is working. And she said, no, it's not at all. You've changed everything you're doing. And I said, yeah. And she goes, so you can write to look like you can write. How stupid can you be? You say you can't write because of the defect or whatever. Well, I'm reading it and it's way different than the pages that were there when I wasn't supposed to be reading it. Right? So I am capable of polishing up. What I came to realize is I can't polish the writing to match the talking. And that disconnect, I bet everybody does that. But for me, it has always made me feel stupid and it doesn't anymore. I think that's a great idea. I'm telling you, people, I do this all day. I swear to you, I do this all day, but I tend to do the mantra a week, right? Or the mantra of the month, and not intentionally. I've never set out to do that, but I do tend to grab onto something that I can't let go of. And maybe sometimes it's been even more than a month, right? Like this may not sound like a mantra, but I'm telling you, the year of the boat, like 2024, I am like that. I literally get positive thoughts that I don't have to think about because of what's about to happen. Right. Last night, I was working with the design team on the phone, literally working with the design team and talking about people. The Discord stuff that we're putting into place is going to be life-changing things for people that need help. I promise you. It's going to be like stepping onto the lifeboat and then going, what part of the boat do we want to go to? Right. Because there are going to be people in the front of the boat that are going to be working on very specific things. And there are going to be people in the back of the boat that are working on very specific things. And all throughout the boat will be people working on other things. And all of this is going to be one-stop shop. And it's going to be there around the clock so that I'd like to think you're still going to come and watch the boat. But if the boat isn't up and running and you can't be hanging out with your friends here, there will be a place that those people can be hanging out 24 hours a day if they're having a hard time. And it's going to have people in there. You're going to be really surprised at where this is going. And someday, people, I'm going to crack open my journal and I'm going to show you that I swear to you, I knew where it was going 2 years ago. I like that one, Martha. Pretty solid. I am a kind person to others and will be kind to myself today. By the way, this is about textbook, how you want to input a positive thought, right? I am is usually the first two words I use for anything I'm programming, right? I am. It is a declaration because I promise you, your automatic negative thoughts are declarations and they usually start, you're not, right? Honestly, you're not good enough. You're not handsome. You're not smart. You're not built well. You're not what, right? If automatic negative thoughts are telling you you're not, then Martha's spot on, right? You're inputting positive thoughts. Need to start I am, and then start putting in. And I'll tell you what, people, right? Imagine being page 2 Tommy and getting this assignment. I'm sitting looking in the mirror going, I am a good person, and going, oh, I'm standing in federal prison, right? I didn't feel like a good person. Now, was I faking it till I made? No, I was living as if. I was living as if I was a good person. Then I went and filled out that 3rd page, right? And I wrote down everything I am gonna be. And then the I am started, and I started to program stuff in. I started to put stuff into the dome, right? I am gonna be a better person. I am a kind person to others and will be kind to myself today, right? Today, I will not put myself second. I do it a lot. And I bet money most of you do. As addicts, we put ourselves first our entire life, above God, above family, above anything, right? So we get sober. What's the first thing we think we probably ought to do? Well, we can't put ourselves first anymore. We did that our whole lives. Tommy said, whatever you do, if you were doing it before, don't do it now, right? Well, you do have to put yourself first. But that's hard to do when you think you're a dirtbag. So we really got to get the I ams, right? Would have been a great name for this show. That's what it should have been called, right? You got to get the I ams under control. And that's what I did when I did the page 3 thing. I wrote down, I want people to say I'm honest. I am an honest person. If you don't think that was a mantra that I did, that's a big one for me, because I was the world's biggest liar, right? So, and I'm not exaggerating, people. I don't know if you ever read Catcher in the Rye, my favorite book, right? And with the exception of Alice, but Alice isn't a book. It's something completely different. But Catcher in the Rye, the only book that I was assigned to read in high school that I bet I've read at least once every 2 years since. And the story changes. It's an amazing story. But he starts out, I'm the biggest liar you ever met, right? Like right now, I'm on my way to the gym, but I might tell you I'm on my way to fencing class. But he was just an absolute, like, and I got him. The first time I read it, I laughed hysterically. I thought it was the funniest book I ever read. How stupid are you as a kid? And then I read it at 22, and it was like, holy hell, this isn't that funny. And by 25, I'm crying through most of it, right? And in my 50s, I usually can't finish it. My project ends today. No more work. Trying not to have ants. Getting more work. You know what? Let me tell you something else that really puts a hurt on the entire ant population in your dome. You want Andro 500 for ants? Start writing down what's in your dome. When you let out the stuff that's in your head, a bunch of ants go out with it. I promise. I promise. If you keep everything locked up inside your head, the ants breed, right? Journaling is the answer to damn near everything. And I know you're fighting it. I know there are people listening to me like, I'll do everything he says but the journaling. I'll do everything he says but the journaling. You know how I know that? Because that's what I said to Q. I'm not doing the journaling stuff. I didn't realize at the time that I was saying that what I was saying is the biggest problem I have in my life is that I think I'm stupid. I think I have a wild learning disability, and it is completely attached to my writing. And you want me to go write? The fact that I'm not comfortable writing probably ended me in prison in the first place. And you want me to go make writing the backbone of my life? And he said, yes. And in the beginning, you're just going to have to let me have them, because I don't think you're going to do it. So let me read them when you're done with them. And when I said, I'll do everything but that, he said, I'm not working with you. Go do what you do. And I did not want to be a heroin addict anymore. So I started journaling. And you know what? I would rather journal than do almost anything at this point in my life. Journaling is the best thing that ever happened to me, right? It really is. Well, Q is the best thing that ever happened to me. But of all of the stuff that Q gave me as far as tools for my life, journaling just didn't get me sober, people. Journaling built the lifeboat. Journaling got my kids in my life. Journaling every single thing that has happened positive in my life. You can go back and read in the journal before it happened, me talking about it happening, right? And then me talking about it in the process of happening. And then me talking about the buzz that didn't require a drug because I got it done, or because it is beginning to take form, or whatever. It's a bummer to say to somebody, well, you know, when did things get off the rail? About a year ago. What was going on in your life? Honestly, I don't have any idea. Huh? No, I mean, I think my wife might have been, you don't have any idea what was happening a year and a half ago. Well, I mean, we're doing drugs, right? We're drinking. We're literally sedating parts of our brain. So memory's not doing what it's supposed to. We're having all kinds of problems. Somebody says to me, "What was going on in your life a year ago?" I'll say, "What day? What day would you like to know what was going on in my life a year ago?" Like, God forbid a cop wants to come up and say, "Where were you on such and such?" I don't know, but I could probably give you a decent idea of what I did that day if I look at the night journal. I mean, it's not going to be every stop I made and all that, but it'll give you a decent idea of the timber of the day, what I was doing, what was going on. You know what, Martha? I dig Martha. Thank you so much, Debbie. I really appreciate it. And you look fantastic in green. What do I think of a video journal? Well, you're kind of looking at it, right? I mean, this is very much for me a type of journaling, but it's not going to work the same for you if you're not sitting here and speaking, right? I mean, I share 3 hours a day, and a bunch of that ends up being stuff. I still journal at the end of the day. Like, it's still, it's not a get out of jail free pass, for writing. But there are people who journal by talking into a recorder. That's fine. Get your stuff out. For me, it is so much more important to engage every single part of me, right? It's important for me that's how I do it. It doesn't have to be important for you that way, but do you understand why having all of your brain engaged will do something different? I obviously have to turn on the part of my brain that thinks in order to do this. But using it with a pen, I bring in every one of the senses. So I think it's really funny. Debbie says, or I'm sorry, Amanda says, "How was your talk with Q yesterday?" Apparently twice yesterday. I told you guys I was going to tell you about this and didn't. And only 3 of you called me on it. I got 3 emails that just said, "Yo, Q." Actually, I think they may have been messengers, but I spoke to Q on the phone. Sadly, it was a prison call. And what I mean by that is there have been times where we get a less restricted phone call. There are ways, especially in a federal system, if you've been there a really, really long time, there are people that might let you use a phone, right? So occasionally I get to talk to them. This was on a prison phone, so it was a Core Links call. We had 15 minutes, but they are inside the prisons. I thought everybody might find this interesting. He said that in Unicor, where he works, they're doing about 4 times production of what they were doing when I was there, which means that it's almost like shift work. Like, there's a first and second shift. These guys are almost working around the clock. And you know what they're making? They're making uniforms for every military on the earth. He is very, very concerned. He said to me, "You know what, bro? We did this before 2 other conflicts." He said, "I'm telling you right now, we're getting ready for something." So, bit of a bummer, but that was Q's focus for most of the call. And I brought him up to speed on the life, but it's like talking to Alan Ballantyne. There are times I talk to Q, and it's about everything that's going on in my life. And then there are times that Q needs to unload. And yesterday, Q was unloading. He's the amount of work that factory is doing is bumming him out. Right? It's bumming him out. And one of the people that we make uniforms for was we did Israeli stuff. There was a bunch of countries that we did, all allies of ours, and apparently they need a lot of uniforms right now. So we were talking about that, and then every time I get this sort of like older brother thing, which is really funny because he's not. I'm older than Q is, but I get this older brother thing where toward the end he is, "You journaling?" Like, I'm gonna stop at some point. Yeah, I'm journaling, and how are you doing with this, or how are you doing with that? I look forward to the day where he and I talk in a restaurant, and I believe it's going to happen. I believe I know how it's going to happen, and someday when he's out, I'll whip out the journal and I'll go, "I plan this." But in the interim, like I tell everybody, just keep the powder dry. The day is coming where we're all going to attack the country to help him get out, right? With letters. We're all going to be writing really, really hard. Yeah, Tommy, you know what? After being in, I think you probably get this more than the next. there are times when you talk to somebody in prison and you know how their life is, right? How things are going, because when there's no drama and there's nothing going on in prison and you talk to an inmate, all he wants is to suck everything he can from what's going on in the world back in. And when it's the other way around, he wants to take all of the crap that's going on in there and push it back out, right? And yesterday was one of those push days, and it's also the holidays, right? This is not easy. This is an easy time for him. He ain't a guru either. He's pretty damn close, but he's just a guy too. And this has got to be pretty rugged. This time of year is pretty tough. Yeah, it was. But you know what? I'll talk to him again next week, and it'll probably be the exact opposite. Oh, wow. Well, that's very cool. And Jen writes, you're in the right place. Jen, you're going to fit right in. Debbie, I'm sorry to hear that. I love that. Thank you, Martha. I love that. I really do. The good news, people, like I said, he's younger than I am, right? He's younger than I am. He's not a ton younger than I am, but he's younger than I am. So I figure we get him out in the next 5. He's got a ton of life left. About what I got, right? In freedom, if I can get him out in the next 5. So we're working on it. I promise we're working on it. So, all right, people, we made it the hour. What are you going to have? I am Captain Tommy Scope. This right here. This is a cat in a basket. All right, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. I'm Captain Tommy. Bye-bye.